Just waiting for people to come in. Interesting. So at 5:30, it's light. 17 people. How y'all doing out there? I'm here doing these last this last batch of labels before I take these things to ship out tomorrow. These items. And I gotta tell you, some folks are really just they feel like they feel like they have a right to harass you. Wow, Nuremberg, Germany, dope. And it is, they don't have a right to harass you. So, I will like I said this last night, like I will absolutely just refund your order if I feel bothered by you. I'm about to get off this live. I'm about to get off this live real soon because the trolls are just... You know, like somebody was definitely like, where's my order? When is this going to be shipped? A week ago. And I told them it'll be shipped by the last day of the month. This is the last day of the month. Do you know that they sent me another email today? Can you please tell me exactly when this is going to be shipped? Never. Keep your money. I do not need this harassment. Keep your money. I don't need it. Thank you, Wanda. Keep your money. Keep your money. I don't need it. Not if it's not for all that. Not for all that. Okay. You know, because it's really dumb. That's what I'm looking for. It just lacks civility. Thank you, HXN. You know what I'm saying, Melissa? Like, you're not putting me under duress to send you a motherfucking pen. This isn't baby formula. I told you I was going to send it, and I'm going to send it when I said I was going to send it. Today is the last day of the month, and it was about to get sent. Not no more. Not no more. That's you not getting it. That's it's over for that. She was right here in this batch, and she could keep her junk. I didn't do a show this morning, Arlene. But thank you. Natasha, girl. Let me tell you something I'm trying to be better at. When I see members of this black community doing shit that I think is corny, I'm going to just keep it to myself. I'm going to just keep it to myself. Because they get bent out of shape. I genuinely have never seen trolls like this in my life. I've never seen this brand of troll in my life. Why is someone on here saying she has AIDS? First of all, what, and if I did? What if I did have AIDS? What would you have accomplished? Is that you attempting to shame me? What if I did have AIDS? Is that you attempting to denigrate me? No, D Purple Rain, D Purple Palm. You do address the trolls. You all seem to think that ignoring things makes them go away. It does not. It does not. It doesn't make them go away. In certain instances, it protects your peace, but ignoring trolls does not protect my peace. So I will do whatever I want to do. I don't know why you feel the need to talk about Jesus in these comments. I don't understand the necessity for that. I don't know what is the validity of that in this space. I had someone in here just say Jesus saves 6 times. You're out of here. Adios. Adios. Yeah. Telling someone that they have AIDS from the point of view of trying to denigrate them or shame them is very low. Very low. What do you mean, what's the context? I said someone was in here in the comments saying Jesus saves, and they said it 6 times. What else is there to say? Damn, I just read that again, Natasha. Really? I'm so sorry. I'll hear you out. I'm not here to convince you. And I'm not here to defend myself. People write hit pieces about me because it gets them something to say. And they don't have nothing to say. They don't have nothing of actual value to say. So they don't have counterpoints to the things that I say, by the way. They don't have counterpoints. They just have, we don't like that. We think she's this and we think she's that. So. Mm-hmm. So, I come on here so I could, baby, the pen's been up here for a month. They were supposed to be only available for a week. So there's that. I came on here to get some work done while I talk to y'all. That's actually why I came on here. Is Jasmine Crockett a strong lead voice of her party in Congress? I don't know that that matters if the party itself is not going to follow the lead in a different direction than it already has been. And I don't know that and I haven't seen anything yet to indicate that. When I see, their continued dedication to taking AIPAC money and corporate dollars, they are the same Democrats that they've always been. And I think that she has moxie, of course, and she has just good old fashioned no nonsense energy. But she is attached to a party that is nonsense. And that is that's essentially because in this country, we still have not, as a people, decided to acknowledge other parties and other options. So, that's just the long and short of it. And unfortunately, whenever people in the Democratic Party have risen to gain the following of the people, the Democratic Party ends up silencing them because it does not want to allow them to be bigger than the party. They did that with Bernie, and I fear that they may do something like that with Jazz. So, I feel very I think something very unique about Jasmine is that she came to the game at like a really impactful age and time. She's of an age where she knows who she is, she knows what she's about. She also doesn't require this job to have status or money, which a lot of folks get into that job for that purpose. And I think she's genuinely somebody who wants to see the people win. And, until unless, I guess, she's able to steer the Democratic Party in a different direction that is far more progressive, I don't see them doing anything different. It becomes a bit of what I would say, an impasse, if you will. And I think there's a version of life where we'll see another party find traction coming out of all of the destabilization that's been going on right now, because ultimately this destabilizing is to be blamed on both Republicans and Democrats. But I'm somebody who at this point in my political activism, so to speak, I'm somebody that believes that you can't simultaneously take money from Israel and genuinely and effectively, that's about, and effectively uh, redirect what's happening to this nation, unless there's some other, you know, unspoken mission at work there. Like there just has to be a genuine disassociation with a path forward that includes the United States and Israel. Yes, Miss Latia. Me and Jasmine have had a heart-to-heart about my feelings about the Democratic Party. Can we talk about this morning? What happened this morning? Oh, there was a press conference? I missed that. Hey, Rolando. I didn't know there was a press conference this morning. My homegirl came to visit, so that's what I've been doing all day. Hanging with people that are my people. Trump yelled at Zelensky? Hold up. Jesus. Oh, Lord, y'all. Let me watch this.
For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the president of the United States' words mattered more than the president of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, parts of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014
2014.
and 2015.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly right.
Did he just try to correct this man about when his country was invaded? Okay, keep going. Y'all said keep going. Okay,
yes,
keep going. I'm gonna keep
during
going.
2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him. A lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire, all of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr.
are not
President,
strong-
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that
I
it's
will
respectful
answer.
to come to the Oval Office
I
of
will
the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's
Wait. Oh, yeah. Okay, let me tell you something real quick. I don't really know Zelensky like that, okay? I don't know if he is a Nazi. Some have said, like, I don't know any of those things. I really genuinely don't have the knowledge on Zelensky like that. But what I will say, he's a comedian. And something about comics, our brains move very fast because we're on stage and we have to do a lot of quick math about the situation in real time. I'm literally watching his comic brain work in real time. Oh, baby, Jewish people can be Nazis. Have you seen how they treat Jewish people who do not go along with Israeli apartheid? Have you seen that? Okay.
Everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this.
you're
I'm not
You're
dictating.
in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
you will
good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad
very
position,
beginning
and
of
he
the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not in a
Mr.
good
Brown,
position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What do you-
III.
what do you think
You're
about?
gambling with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
Yeah.
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'll tell you one thing he is, patient.
I'm
That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to you.
Far more than a lot of people said
Where
they
is
should
that?
have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting, have
today.
you said? You went to Pennsylvania.
Zelensky, flip the table and get out of there! Get out of there!
Appreciation for
Oh,
the United
these
States of
niggas.
America
Wow.
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country's
Can I-
in big
can I-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No.
Can
You've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this.
I...
You have a damn
We-
good chance of
we are
coming out
staying-
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
We gave
for
you
your
military equipment.
You
and your
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about West
If
people?
you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Rolando,
But,
get him.
Say thank you.
I said a lot of
except
times
that
thank
there,
you
except
to
that,
American people.
except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running low
I
on
know.
soldiers. Listen, you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
There
It
wasn't
doesn't
with,
matter.
What he said was the last time we had a ceasefire, he still broke the ceasefire and did whatever he wanted, which, by the way, this is exactly what Israel's doing to Palestine, by the way. Okay? This is exactly, except they're letting Zelensky come and talk, right? They're not even having these conversations in front of people, but this is literally what Israel is doing to Palestine. What Russia is doing to Ukraine, it's the same thing. And there is some, I would venture to say there's even some similarity in the fact that like Zelensky was supplanted, like he was implanted, he was put in place to be a bit of a, kind of like puppet for the United States to do a proxy war against Putin. And that is similar to the Palestinian Authority in Palestine.
That wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelin.
Nettie, let me tell you something. First of all, that's my mama name. The minute that man touched my arm, the Harlem would have came out. The Harlem would have came out. Mecca, is it possible for you all to ever just watch something and just have like a genuine reaction to it without trying to dictate what somebody else is doing? Is that possible? How are we caping for Zelensky? Who is caping for Zelensky? At the end of the day, what we're talking about in this chat is Zelensky or nah, this man's talking to him nuts. And that's what we're discussing right now. Just the basic context of this man who is ridiculous is talking to him nuts. Okay? And also, there are real people who die. There are real people who die because of this. And someone just said, that's not how you talk to my peers. Who said y'all are my peers? I don't even know which one of y'all are real people. I don't know what you look like. I don't know if you're a bot. None of y'all are my peers unless I actually have interacted with you in a real way. Let's make that explicitly clear. Furthermore, a lot of y'all aren't my peers because you don't do what the hell I do. We're not peers. We're not colleagues. So let's be clear. But regardless of this little shit show we're talking about, oh, she was talking about the president. My bad. My bad. Sorry, Gia Brewer. You know I be in here. Okay? My bad. Sorry, Gia. I meant what I said, though. But man, so the thing about it, though, is that people, like real people, okay, I think that it's real easy for us, and this is what I think Americans are going to F around and find out, is that, Melissa said, damn, we all got astray. Melissa said, damn, we all got it. Ooh, I needed that laugh. That was a good laugh. Man, we all got astray. Whew. That was good. Damn, double homicide. Oh my God, y'all cracking me up. Man, it's shooting off the backboard today. Okay. Whew. Sorry, Gia. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Gia. Thank you. Whew. That was good. I just got some abs off of that laugh. Damn, we all got it straight. And then Miss Latia left all of y'all in the bank with your masks off and the cops pulling up. She said, not me. I know we ain't kinfolk. Skirt! Okay, so as I was saying, which is not a laughing matter, is that we're watching like the real life game of Risk, right? Which is a war game of dominance. And what it presupposes, or what it fails to presuppose so often, is that there aren't actual human lives attached to all of this. And when they talk about these things in this way, you're seeing one person who is acknowledging that there are human lives attached to this, and you're seeing two other people that aren't. So, I mean, for what it's worth, whether you F with Zelensky or not, I think that's something worth noting, because these two people are genuine psychopaths and sociopaths, which is why dealing with this administration in a particular fashion is in a passive fashion is nonsensical. Dealing with this in an administration, with their pockets is nonsensical, because the truth of the matter is that these people don't give a damn about your lives. They don't care about your lives. So whether you're protecting your life or not, they don't care about it. So it becomes a matter of like, okay, how do you deal with people who literally don't care about life? How? How do you deal with these people? Because we're in the burning house, right? The burning house of America, which is a completely immoral place. How do you deal with this place? And what frustrates me is when I see people acting like there's some moral way to deal with these immoral people, or there's some upstanding way. That's why the statement, they go low, we go high, used to make me so bothered, because thank you, Design by Bree. Because there's just no legitimate argument to say that just being the bigger person or being, I don't know, respectable is going to somehow challenge enemies that are at your door in this type of fashion. Don't get me wrong. There are scenarios where that is the way, where it's like, just demonstrate and that's enough. But this ain't that. This ain't that. And after I finish watching this, I'm going to read y'all a comment that somebody left me, a long comment, and I want to go through it because a lot of times I don't think y'all understand that, like, I'll respond to comments or I'll respond to people for a much bigger issue than just, for a much bigger reason than just like the individual me responding to the comment. So there's that. But, I will say that when you see President Trump sitting with Pam Bondi talking about taking guns, that should really pique your interest. And, the war that will start in the United States is going to be a war of the whites. Be clear. It's going to be a war of the whites. So I understand sitting that out. But I do feel like it's going to be a lot more complicated than people think. And I think people really believe that you're going to be able to just watch them people fight and that you are going to be able to not be involved in it. And I don't know. I mean, the Great Depression managed to happen and, go on its merry way without really affecting Black folks. But unless we are literally in segregated communities, which we are not, I don't see that necessarily being the same way that it goes this time. So let me just watch the rest of this. This right here, though, this Trump Zelensky.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
So
for 4 years, the United States
Oh,
of
sorry.
America.
This February at Renewal
is
by
he
Anderson,
trying
replace your
to-
windows, your patio doors.
Says J.D. Vance, and we
Ceasefire right now, I tell you, you don't have the cards.
So is the goal here to try and get Zelensky to agree to be up under the U.S. in their allegiance with Putin? I guess what he's trying to get him to do is to go along with them and whatever they're saying to Putin, and basically say, if you would just shut up, we'll do what we gonna do, and you need to go along with it. Now, what I want y'all to know is that LA, like, he's gonna have to give up something to do that, and he's gonna have to give up minerals, right? So basically, the U.S. will be able to come in there and take whatever they want, for the condition of protection. And I guess what he's saying is, yeah, but y'all ain't really giving us no conditions of protection for me to be giving you our resources.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running low
I
on
know.
soldiers. Listen,
Please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was with
wasn't with
a
you.
guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your-
with,
this
that was
is
with
your president.
Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
Caitlin, I do want to, because there were a lot of things that were just not true, aside from just the tone and tenor and the monumental, historic, not in a good way, historic event that we just saw in the Oval Office. Caitlin, it really did seem to devolve when the vice president said to Zelensky, we just want diplomacy. And what Zelensky was trying to do was say, we had that. We had a deal with Russia. We had an agreement, the Minsk agreement, and Russia didn't abide by it. So I want some guarantees that that won't happen again. And then it devolved in a way that is really, really
I can't stand
remarkable.
Dana.
But he understands when the television cameras are there, as does J.D. Vance. And we can't lose sight of the performance aspect of this.
It was incredibly genuine, though. I mean, J.D. Vance said that this shouldn't be litigated in front of the press. Trump said, actually, no, it should be. I'm glad that this is happening. And, the way that this built, just to give context of the 40 minutes that happened before what you just watched, the most remarkable part of this interaction was there were moments where President Zelensky would do what we saw the other European leaders do this week, where they step in to correct either on aid to Ukraine or to talk about Putin, fact that he can't be trusted. At one point, Zelensky called him a killer and saying that there should be no compromises with him. And the U.S. officials were sitting there just kind of listening to this. And it was at that point, though, where Vice President Vance stepped in. Trump was silent at the beginning of that, and then Trump also got involved. And then they were just essentially yelling at one another in this. And with Trump, all of his diplomacy, we know, is personal. That's why the world leaders who have come here this week have tried to flatter him to essentially get what they want when it comes to negotiating the end of this. And that was not what we just saw, the tack that Zelensky took here. He was, as Zelensky typically is, straightforward in his opinions and what is the reality on the ground. It was kind of chastising Vice President Vance for not having come to Ukraine. And at one point earlier, when Trump was asked if he would go to Ukraine, Zelensky was saying that was what he was going to ask Trump as well. He's been very, he's emphasized a lot that he thinks these U.S. officials need to be there. But to give you a sense of how this negotiation is going, right now they are meeting behind closed doors. They're supposed to come out for a press conference any minute now, and that's where they're signing that minerals agreement that they've been touting as a big first step here. There are real questions about what this looks like going forward, because you heard what President Trump said to me there at the end. I asked, can the two of you still go in a room and negotiate after what just happened? And he said, we'll see, essentially.
Wait, did I
and
miss?
There was one moment where I looked around the room at the officials who were there. It's the top Ukrainian advisors, the Secretary of State to President Trump, the Treasury Secretary, Vice President Vance.
I guess I didn't see the whole thing.
If you're a New York homeowner, then you could qualify to receive $19,000.
Oh, I figured there was more.
For 4 years, the United States.
This is happening. And, you know,
No,
the way that this
I don't want you to talk. Okay, here we go.
He broken this ceasefire.
It'll be a tough deal to make because of those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. Oh, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry, here.
It'll be a tough deal to make because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war.
Bro.
And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me.
No.
He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States.
What?
So your people are very brave. You're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice
thing. This is wild manipulation. This is narcissism at its best.
What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that. All right. We'll see what we can do about putting it together.
Okay, and now you said I need to look at Jeffrey Sachs at the EU. Oh. I love Jeffrey Sachs.
First of all, I would like to thank you all for coming here. We didn't expect actually that so many people come. We're very pleased about this. And of course, above all, I want to.
This is like
Professor
an hour.
Sachs and his wife, Sonia.
Y'all, this is like an hour long, but it's Jeffrey.
I have forgot my things, so it's very difficult to introduce him. He did it so much. I'm very happy that you're here.
I can be.
Let me just see a little bit of it.
Thanks to all of you for the chance to be together and to think together. This is indeed a complicated and fast-changing.
I really want to meet Jeffrey Sachs.
And a very dangerous one. So we really need clarity of thought. I'm especially interested in our conversation, so I'll try to be as succinct and clear as I can be. I've watched the events very close up in Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, Russia, very closely for the last 36 years. I was an advisor to the Polish government in 1989, to President Gorbachev in 1990 and 91, to President Yeltsin in 1991 to 1993 to President Kuchma.
I'm speeding up the playback speed.
1993, 94. I helped introduce the Estonian currency. I helped several countries in former Yugoslavia, especially Slovenia.
Thank you, Mr. Sean.
I've watched the
Have a
events
good time.
very close up for 36 years. After the Maidan, I was asked by the new government to come to Kiev, and I was taken around the Maidan, and I learned a lot of things firsthand. I've been in touch with Russian leaders for more than 30 years. I know the American political leadership close up. Our previous Secretary of Treasury was my macroeconomics teacher 51 years ago, or just to give you an idea. So we were very close friends for a half century. I know all of these people. I just want to say this because what I want to explain in my point of view is not secondhand. It's not ideology. It's what I've seen with my own eyes and experienced during this period.
Right.
In my understanding of the events that have befallen Europe in many contexts, and I'll include not only the Ukraine crisis, but Serbia, 1999, the wars in the Middle East, including Iraq, Syria, the wars in Africa, including Sudan, Somalia, Libya. These are to a very significant extent that would surprise you, perhaps, and would be denounced about what I'm about to say. These are wars that the United States led and caused. And this has been true for more than 40 years now. What happened, more than 30 years, I should say, to be more precise. The United States came to the view, especially in 1990, 91, and then with the end of the Soviet Union, that the U.S. now ran the world, and that the U.S. did not have to heed anybody's views, red lines, concerns, security viewpoints, or any international obligations, or any UN framework.
We're listening to Jeffrey Sachs give a speech about European Parliament. He gave the speech last week, February 19th, at the EU. And Professor Jeffrey Sachs is somebody who he teaches at Columbia. I mean, it's like, I'm proud that we went to the same school, but I don't really like that school. But he is a very well studied and well credited individual who has worked within government and economics and geopolitics.
I'm sorry to put it so plainly, but I do want you to understand, end of the Soviet Union, that the U.S. now ran the world.
Yes, Brenda Viloria. Oh my gosh, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that. Yes, it could be bots. Like, this internet is such a minefield of fuckery that you really don't know what's coming at you and what's not coming at you. For real.
Anybody's views, red lines, concerns, security viewpoints, or any international obligations, or any UN framework. I'm sorry to put it so plainly, but I do want you to understand. I tried very hard in 1991 to get help for Gorbachev, who I think was the greatest statesman of our modern time. I recently read the archived memo of the National Security Council discussion of my proposal, how they completely dismissed it and laughed it off the table.
Wow.
When I said that the United States should help the Soviet Union in financial stabilization and in making its reforms. And the memo documents, including some of my former colleagues at Harvard in particular, saying we will do the minimum that we will do to prevent disaster, but the minimum. It's not our job to help. Quite the contrary, it's not our interest to help. When the Soviet Union ended in 1991, the view became even more exaggerated. And I can name chapter and verse, but the view was we run the show. Cheney, Wolfowitz, and many other names that you will have come to know literally believed this is now a U.S. world, and we will do as we want. We will clean up from the former Soviet Union. We will take out any remaining allies. Countries like Iraq, Syria, and so forth will go. And we've been experiencing this foreign policy for now essentially 33 years. Europe has paid a heavy price for this because Europe has not had any foreign policy during this period that I can figure out. No voice, no unity, no clarity, no European interests, only American loyalty. There were moments where there were disagreements and very, I think, wonderful disagreements, especially in the last time of significance was 2003 in the Iraq War, when France and Germany said we don't support the United States going around the UN Security Council for this war. That war, by the way, was directly concocted by Netanyahu and his colleagues in the U.S. Pentagon.
What?
I'm not saying that it was a link or mutuality. I'm saying it was a direct war. That was a war carried out for Israel. It was a war that Paul Wolfowitz and Douglas Feith coordinated with Netanyahu. And that was the last time that Europe had a voice. And I spoke with European leaders then, and they were very clear. It was quite wonderful. Europe lost its voice entirely after that, but especially in 2008. Now, what happened after 1991 to get to 2008 is that the United States decided that unipolarity meant that NATO would enlarge somewhere from Brussels to Vladivostok, step by step. There would be no end to eastward enlargement of NATO. This would be the U.S. unipolar world. If you played the game of Risk as a child, like I did, this is the U.S. idea, to have the peace on every...
Did you hear me reference Risk earlier? Did y'all hear me reference Risk earlier? What did I say? What did I say? Didn't I say it? I sure did. I sure did reference Risk earlier. Thank you, Dana Cooper. I did. I said we are watching a real life game of Risk. I be knowing. It's early. Someone asked what the context of this is, and the context is he was invited. I'm gonna just read you the caption. Professor Jeffrey Sachs recently addressed European Parliament on February 19th, 2025 with a stark warning. Being a friend to the United States can be fatal. Speaking at the Geopolitics of Peace event hosted by Michael von der Schulenburg, Sachs emphasized the need for Europe to adopt a truly independent foreign policy. They must be listening because that's what they're doing. If you watched Views for Amanda Land on, was that Tuesday? On Tuesday it was Monday. We played the we play. Don Lemon is lovely, but we don't exist with, like, our politics are not similar enough for us to start a Black news network. Me and Mark Lamont, hell yeah. Share away. I lost my train of thought, but we were playing the winner of the German, the German elections. He did a speech where he was like, we're not going to partner with the alt-right, even though we are a conservative party. And we, as Europe, are not going to partner with the U.S. We're breaking up.
Part of the board. Any place without a U.S. military base is an enemy, basically. Neutrality is a dirty word in the U.S. political lexicon. Perhaps the dirtiest word. At least if you're an enemy, we know you're an enemy. If you are neutral, you're subversive. Because then you're really against us. Because you're not telling us. You're pretending to be neutral. So this was the mindset. And the decision was taken formally in 1994, when President Clinton signed off on NATO enlargement to the east. You will recall that in February 7th, 1991, Hans-Dietrich Genscher and James Baker III spoke with Gorbachev. Genscher gave a press conference afterwards where he explained, NATO will not move eastward. We will not take advantage of the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact. And understand that was in a juridical context, not a casual context. This was the end of World War II being negotiated for German reunification. Okay. And an agreement was made that NATO will not move 1 inch eastward.
Wait, he said juridical? What does that word mean? Druidical means relating to the ancient Celtic priesthood or to modern movements to revive Druidism. Is that what he said? Yes, Gia, I saw that. He left without signing. He sounds like a robot because I'm playing it back at 1.5 speed so we can get through it faster.
And it was explicit, and it is in countless documents. And just look up National Security Archive of George Washington University, and you can.
Yeah, your man's Zelensky was like, I'm out. I'm out. Keep your shit. That's how I feel when y'all be on my head about orders. I'll keep your shit. Refund. Fuck out of here.
You can get dozens of documents. It's a website called What Gorbachev Heard About NATO. Take a look, because everything you're told by the U.S. is a lie about this. But the archives are perfectly clear. So the decision was taken in 1994 to expand NATO all the way to Ukraine. This is a project. This is not one administration or another. This is a U.S. government project that started more than 30 years ago.
How are you not tired of spending your hard-earned money on a million different productivity apps? Well, here's how you can save and wave goodbye to...
In 1997, Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote The Grand Chessboard. That is not just musings of...
Wait, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So what's happening, what he's talking about is that NATO, what is NATO? North Atlantic something? No, that's NAFTA. NATO is supposed to be the post-World War II collection of countries saying we're not going to fight no more. But really, the United States are at the top, are at the head of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Thank you. And there was apparently a conversation with Gorbachev, and there was a commitment to say that we're not going to expand NATO east. And this is before Ukraine was even a part of NATO. And then that flipped. Because they actually, in 1994, because, you know, Gorbachev and the Soviet Union, that all ended in 92. And so that shifted. And you know what, Miss Latia? I felt a nuclear coming. That's why I said, let's tap in. Let's tap in. And so that shifted. And remember, the context that he's placing this in is the mindset that after World War II, the world is run by the United States, and that any country that doesn't have the United States with some type of military presence in it is not considered a friend to the United States. Okay, so let's...
The archives are perfectly clear. So the decision was taken in 1994 to expand NATO all the way to Ukraine. This is a project. This is not one administration or another. This is a U.S. government project that started more than 30 years ago. In 1997, Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote The Grand Chessboard. That is not just musings of Mr. Brzezinski. That is the presentation of the decisions of the United States government explained to the public, which is how these books work. And the book describes the eastward enlargement of Europe and of NATO as simultaneous events. And there's a good chapter in that book that says, what will Russia do as Europe and NATO expand eastward? And I knew Zbigniew Brzezinski personally. He was very nice to me. I was advising Poland. He was a big help. He was a very nice and smart man, and he got everything wrong. So in 1997, he wrote in detail why Russia could do nothing but accede to the eastward expansion of NATO and Europe. In fact, he says the eastward expansion of Europe, and not just Europe, but NATO. This was a plan, a project. And he explains how Russia will never align with China. Unthinkable. Russia will never align with Iran. Russia has no vocation other than the European vocation. So as Europe moves east, there's nothing Russia can do about it. So says yet another American strategist. Is it any question why we're in war all the time? Because one thing about America is we always know what our counterparts are going to do, and we always get it wrong. And one reason we always get it wrong is that in game theory that the American strategists play, you don't actually talk to the other side. You just know what the other side's strategy is. It's wonderful. It saves so much time. You don't need
That's sarcasm.
So this project began, and we had a continuity of government for 30 years, until maybe yesterday, perhaps. 30 years of a project. Ukraine and Georgia were the keys to the project. Why? Because America learned everything it knows from the British. And so we are the wannabe British Empire.
Yep.
And what the British Empire understood in 1853, Lord Palmerston, excuse me, is that you surround Russia in the Black Sea and you deny Russia access to the Eastern Mediterranean. And all you're watching is an American project to do that in the 21st century. The idea was that there would be Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, and Georgia as the Black Sea littoral that would deprive Russia of any international status by blocking the Black Sea and essentially by neutralizing Russia as more than a local power. Brzezinski's completely clear about this. And before Brzezinski, there was Mackinder. And who owns the island of the world owns the world. So this project goes back a long time. I think it goes back basically to Palmerston.
Wait, we got to look up who Palmerston is. Who is Palmerston? He said this goes back to Palmerston. Palmerston is British statements. If this is who he's talking about, he's saying British statesman and politician who served as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1855 to 1858. You can't find the stream that I'm watching. It's called it's from the Times of India, and it's called Jeffrey Sachs Roaring Ukraine Speech. If you literally just look up Jeffrey Sachs Ukraine, it comes up, I think, in like the first three. I think he's referring to Palmerston. Henry John Temple III, Viscount Palmerston. Well, I'll read it in a British accent, actually. I'll try. Henry John Temple III, Viscount Palmerston, known as Lord Palmerston, was a British statesman and politician who served as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1855 to 1858 and from 1859 to 1865. A member of the Tory, Whig and Liberal parties, Palmerston was the first Liberal Prime Minister. Okay. So if I'm correct in who he's referring to, he's saying that this plan to essentially cordon off, is that the word I'm looking for? Cordon Russia. How are you spelling Sachs, y'all? How are you spelling Sachs? No, I can't link the screen because you can't do, you can't put it in here. You can't do that like you can on Instagram. Jeffrey Sachs, Ukraine. I don't know what else to say. Jeffrey Sachs at the EU, Times of India. If you put any of these into YouTube, you should be able to get there. No, I'm not doing all of that. Cordon off. Why was I really struggling with that? They're trying to cordon off Russia, but I guess according to what he's saying, that was all the way back to the 1850s, which I didn't even realize. But I guess that's like during like the Bolsheviks and all. It's from February 19th. February 19th, Jeffrey Sachs addresses the EU Parliament. T, are you confirming that I was right about the Bolsheviks? Because that's when that was happening, right? Or no, the Bolsheviks is the 1930s, I think. Yeah, I think the Bolsheviks is actually the 1930s. It may have posted 4 days ago, But on February 19th, 2025, Professor Jeffrey Sachs addressed the European Parliament. That's what... Let me not let y'all irritate me.
Again,
Thank you,
I've lived through
Jamie.
every administration. I've known these presidents. I've known their teams. Nothing changed much from Clinton to Bush to Obama to Trump 1 to Biden. Maybe they got worse step by step. Biden was the worst in my view. Maybe also because he was not compos mentis for the last couple of years. And I say that seriously, not as a...
Wait. He was not compos mentis? I mean, I from context clues, I know he's saying he was just not competent, but let's... Yes, compos mentis means having full control of one's mind. Sane. He literally just said, Biden was not compos mentis. Yes, Biden was not compos mentis. He said something interesting, Joe, just now, if you caught it. He said, Jeffrey Sachs said, basically, all the presidents from Clinton on down got progressively worse, with Biden being the worst, largely in part because the last few years he was not compos mentis.
Snarky remark. The American political system is a system of image. It's a system of media manipulation every day. It is a PR system. And so you could have a president that basically doesn't function and have that in power for 2 years and actually have that president run for re-election. And one damn thing is he had to stand on a stage for 90 minutes by himself. And that was the end of it. Had it not been that mistake, he would have gone on to have his candidacy, whether he was sleeping after 4 p.m. in the afternoon or not. So this is actually the reality. Everybody goes along with it. It's impolite to say anything that I'm saying.
If I'm being honest with y'all, it, and part of it is my autism. It really does get to me just how persistent so many folks are in I froze as like a person, are in trying to suggest that like things that I'm saying about Biden, about Obama, etc., are dumb. And I have been siloed for a long time from really getting to listen to people like Jeffrey Sachs. Like these people are just now coming into my consciousness. And I got to tell you, for so long, so many of the people that I've been around that were telling me this, I've come to realize didn't know what the hell they were talking about. They are part of the system. They are, yay, Dulce! They are part of the system. They are part of the establishment. They mistake standing for Black people's elevation in terms of being a part of establishment as somehow a dismantling of the actual establishment that keeps us from being elevated. So when I hear a genius and a brilliant person and a credited person like Jeffrey Sachs saying what I have been thinking, it is so affirming. Compton, it is so affirming. Man.
Have a president that basically doesn't function and have that in power for 2 years and actually have that president run for re-election. And one damn thing is he had to stand on a stage for 90 minutes by himself. And that was the end of it. Had it not been that mistake, he would have gone on to have his candidacy, whether he was sleeping after 4 p.m. in the afternoon or not. So this is actually the reality. Everybody goes along with it. It's impolite to say anything that I'm saying because we don't speak the truth about almost anything in this world right now. So this project went on from the 1990s. Bombing Belgrade 78 straight days in 1999 was part of this project. Splitting apart the country when borders are sacrosanct, aren't they indeed? Except for Kosovo. That's fine, because borders are sacrosanct except when America changes them.
All right, let's look up sacrosanct. We know from complex clues. From complex clues, what do you think sacrosanct means? He says, we know that borders are sacrosanct, except for Kosovo. So what do we think sacrosanct means? Denise said sacred. Patsy said, I've never spoken the truth. Patsy, what the hell are you talking about? Okay, we got some options here. So Sarah says irrelevant. Miss Latia says non-existent. So actually, the correct answer is deemed important. Sacrosanct means regarded as too important or valuable to be interfered with. So we see that there's a U.S., confluence of like, oh, our border is sacrosanct, which is why we have to put a wall and we have to put, border police, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, when it comes to, the borders of Palestine, or like Jeffrey Sachs said here, the borders of Kosovo, it's like, well, that doesn't really matter. We'll just do whatever we want to do.
Sudan was another related project. The South Sudan Rebellion. Did that just happen?
Patsy, this is what you typed. That's right. And you never have spoken the truth. This ain't new. That's what you typed. So check yourself real quick, because I'm reading what you typed and people switch up all the time. So you could have been supporting me all day until today. But that is what I'm reading. That's right. And you never have spoken the truth. This ain't new. Okay, so Patsy's out of here since she want to be ridiculous. I'm literally reading what she typed and she is saying that she didn't type that.
Happened because South Sudanese rebelled? Or can I give you the CIA playbook to please understand, as grown-ups, what this is about?
Yeah, you can mistype, but then just be like, my bad, I mistyped. But don't sit here and try and tell me that I'm not reading what the fuck I'm reading. Like, why are you being defensive about a mistake that you made? Just be like, oh, my bad, I didn't type that. I'm literally reading what you typed. And then you want to sit up here and talk to me fucking crazy.
Incrediware is the first wearable anti-inflammatory. Not only does it take away the inflammation, but when you take away the inflammation, you take...
Military events are costly. They require equipment, training, base camps, intelligence, finance. That comes from big powers. That doesn't come from local insurrections. Sudan did not defeat North Sudan.
Stop trying to defend Patsy in here, y'all.
In a tribal battle. It was a U.S. project. I would go often to Nairobi.
She may have been
U.S. military or senators or others with deep interest.
I don't know what she was doing, but when I asked her about it, she said, that's not what I typed. I don't know what you saw, but that's not what I typed.
Part of this project, splitting apart the country when borders are sacrosanct, aren't they indeed? Except for Kosovo. That's fine, because borders are sacrosanct except when America changes them.
You heard what he said? Because borders are sacrosanct until America changes them.
Sudan was another related project. The South Sudan Rebellion. Did that just happen because South Sudanese rebelled? Or can I give you the CIA playbook?
Give us the CIA playbook.
As grown-ups, what this is about. Military events are costly. They require equipment, training, base camps, intelligence, finance. That comes from big powers. That doesn't come from local insurrections.
Okay.
South Sudan did not defeat North Sudan or Sudan in a tribal battle.
Right.
It was a U.S. project. I would go often to Nairobi and meet U.S. military or senators or others with deep interest in Sudan's politics. This was part of the game of unipolarity. So the NATO enlarged.
So just to remember, the game of unipolarity. The game of unipolarity refers to the goal that the United States will rule the world. One, pole, centered, arity.
As you know, started in 1999 with Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic.
Wait, 1999. Shout out to the class of 99!
Sudan's politics. This was part of the game of unipolarity. So the NATO enlargement, as you know, started in 1999 with Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic. And Russia was extremely unhappy about it. But these were countries still far from the border. And Russia protested, but of course to no avail. Then George Bush Jr. came in. When 9/11 occurred, President Putin pledged all support. And then the U.S. Decided in September 20th, 2001, that it would launch 7 wars in 5 years. And you can listen to General Wesley Clark online talk about that. He was NATO's Supreme Commander in 1999. He went to the Pentagon on September 20th, 2001. He was handed the paper explaining 7 wars. These, by the way, were Netanyahu's wars. The idea was partly to clean up old Soviet allies and partly to take out supporters of Hamas and Hezbollah. Because Netanyahu's idea was there will be one state, thank you, only one state. It will be Israel. Israel will control all of the territory. And anyone that objects, we will overthrow. Not we exactly, our friend, the United States. That's U.S. policy until this morning. We don't know whether it will change. Now, the only wrinkle is that maybe the U.S. will own Gaza instead of Israel owning Gaza. But the idea has been around at least for 25 years. It actually goes back to a document called Clean Break that Netanyahu and his American political team put together in 1996 to end the idea of the two-state solution. You can also find it online.
Wow.
So these are projects. These are long-term events. These aren't, is it Clinton? Is it Bush? Is it Obama? That's the boring way to look at American politics.
Now, if you watched the Zelensky conversation with Trump, this is really interesting because what Jeffrey Sachs is doing is actually affirming what Zelensky was saying, which is like whether it's you, President Trump, or Obama, etc., it was the United States that was going and pushing all of this forward. And Trump is trying to say, nah, that was them, but this is me. And he was like, no, it was America. That's what, why you trying to throw that in our face, bad doll? So, interesting.
As the day-to-day game, but that's not what American politics is. So the next round of NATO enlargement came in 2004 with 7 more countries. The 3 Baltic states, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovenia, and Slovakia. At this point, Russia was pretty damn upset. This was a complete violation of the post-war order agreed with German reunification. Essentially, it was a fundamental trick or defection of the U.S. from a cooperative arrangement, is what it amounted to, because they believe in unipolarity. So as everybody recalls, because we just had the Munich Security Conference last week in 2007, President Putin said, stop, enough, stop now. And of course, what that meant was in 2008, the United States jammed down Europe's throat, enlargement of NATO to Ukraine and to Georgia. This is a long-term
Pause.
I listened to Mr. Saakashvili in New York in May of 2008, and I walked out, called Sonia, and said, this man's crazy. And a month later, a war broke out because the United States told this guy, we saved Georgia. And he stands at the Council on Foreign Relations, says, Georgia's in the center of Europe. Well, it ain't, ladies and gentlemen. It's not in the center of Europe. And the most recent events are not helpful for Georgia, for its safety, and your MPs going there, or MEPs going there, and European politicians. That gets Georgia destroyed. That doesn't save Georgia. That gets Georgia destroyed. Completely destroyed. In 2008, as everybody knows, our former CIA director, William Burns, sent a long message back to Condoleezza Rice. Niet means niet.
No means no.
This we know from Julian Assange, because believe me, not one word is told to the American people about anything, or to you, or by any of your newspapers.
Wait, let's hear this again.
Well, it ain't, ladies and gentlemen. It's not in the center of Europe.
Something that's really important that y'all who are, listening to the work that I do, need to remember always is something that he is saying here, that Chomsky has been saying, that American media is not honest. American media is not truthful. So anyone holding space, anyone holding space in those spaces should be given a side eye. Doesn't mean that they should be completely disregarded. It doesn't mean that there aren't anomalies. But anybody, no matter their race, gender, sexuality, who is taking up space in mainstream media should always be given a side eye. I've had Christiana Amanpour's name thrown in my zeitgeist for years upon years upon years as this amazing, incredible journalist. And now that I have all of the knowledge I have and have seen a number of her interviews, I realize she is incredibly daft and has more than once been wildly representative of the capitalist hegemony and all the things. C-SPAN is not really a news source as much as C-SPAN is a place where you're watching what's going on. I do think she is daft. When I've watched her argue Zionism, when I've watched her argue colonialism, like there's two sides, I'm like, sis, what? Like, you doing this from a journalistic point of view? Come on. So, agree to disagree. Those of you out here like, no, she's not. She's smart. I didn't say she ain't smart, but she's silly in her arguments. Amy G now, don't get me started on Democracy Now, okay? Y'all know I don't play about Democracy Now. Somebody come for Democracy Now, I'm going to write at dawn, okay? I'm writing at dawn for Amy Goodman. Did I tell y'all about how Amy Goodman and I ended up sitting next to each other on the train coming from D.C. to New York? And I was fangirling, and she basically did an entire expose interview with me the entire time. Like, literally, like, she's like, okay, so tell me about your father. It was the best. The irony of this is that I had went to her event the night before, and I actually didn't get to meet her. And I was like, oh, shucks, I didn't get to meet Amy Goodman. I got to meet Angela Davis. I didn't get to meet Amy Goodman. And then the next day I'm sitting on the train, and I hear her voice, and I was like, Amy Goodman. And she's like, hi. I was like, I was supposed to meet you yesterday at your event. And she was like, oh, thank you for coming. I was like, I'm Amanda Seales. And she said, you're Amanda Seales? Hello. And then she ended up sitting in the seat next to me. But Amy Goodman, Medea Benjamin, them the kind of white women I'm about. Okay. You know what, bad dog? I'm gonna put you in timeout. You said C-SPAN is Twitch for senior citizens. You know what? Let's get back to the learning. Let's get back to the learning. If you're just joining us, we are watching Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Jeffrey Sachs' roaring Ukraine speech at EU Parliament. He blasts the U.S. and he's talking and he's teaching and we're listening and breaking it down.
And the most recent events are not helpful for Georgia, for its safety, and your MPs going there, your MEPs going there. And
what? Doge cut PBS's funding? Oh, okay. Not yet. Hold on. Okay.
In politicians, that gets Georgia destroyed. That doesn't save Georgia. That gets Georgia destroyed. Completely destroyed. In 2008, as everybody knows, our former CIA director, William Burns, sent a long message back to Condoleezza Rice. Niet means niet about expansion. This we know from Julian Assange. Because believe me, not one word is told to the American people about anything, or to you, or by any of your newspapers these days. So we have Julian Assange to thank, but we can read the memo in detail. As you know, Viktor Yanukovych was elected in 2010 on the platform of neutrality. Russia had no territorial interests or designs in Ukraine at all. I know, I was there during these years. What Russia was negotiating was a 25-year lease to 2042 for Sevastopol Naval Base. That's it. Not for Crimea, not for the Donbass, nothing like that. This idea that Putin is reconstructing the Russian Empire, this is childish propaganda, excuse me. If anyone knows the day-to-day and year-to-year history, this is childish stuff. Childish stuff seems to work better than adult stuff. So no designs at all. The United States decided this man must be overthrown. It's called a regime change operation. Mm-hmm. There have been about 100 of them by the United States, many in your countries and many all over the world. Mm-hmm. That's what the CIA does for a living.
Literally.
Okay, please know it. It's a very unusual kind of foreign policy. But in America, if you don't like the other side, you don't negotiate with them, you try to overthrow them. Preferably covertly. If it doesn't work covertly, you do it overtly. You always say it's not our fault. They're the aggressor. They're the other side. They're Hitler. That comes up every 2 or 3 years. Whether it's Saddam Hussein, whether it's Assad, whether it's Putin, that's very convenient. That's the only foreign policy explanation the American people are ever given anywhere. Well, we're facing Munich 1938. Well, we're facing Munich 1938. Can't talk to the other side. They're evil, implacable foes. That's the only model of foreign policy we ever hear from our mass media. And the mass media repeats it entirely because it's completely suborned by the U.S. government. Now, in 2014, the U.S. worked actively to overthrow Yanukovych. Everybody knows the phone call intercepted by my Columbia University colleague, Victoria Nuland, and the U.S. Ambassador Peter Piot. You don't get better evidence. The Russians intercepted her call and they put it on the internet. Listen to it. It's fascinating. I know all these people. By the way, by doing that, they all got promoted in the Biden administration. That's the job. Now, when the Maidan occurred, I was called immediately. Oh, Professor Sachs, the new Ukrainian prime minister would like to see you to talk about the economic crisis. Because I'm pretty good at that. And so I flew to Kiev and I was walked around the Maidan. And I was told how the U.S. paid the money for all the people around the Maidan. Spontaneous revolution of dignity. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Where do all these media outlets come from? Where does all this organization come from? Where do all these buses come from? Where do all these people called in come from? Are you kidding? This is organized effort. And it's not a secret, except to citizens of Europe and the United States. Everyone else understands it quite clearly. Then came Minsk, and especially Minsk II, which, by the way, was modeled on South Tyrolean autonomy. And the Belgians could have related to Minsk II very well. It said there should be autonomy for the Russian-speaking regions in the east of Ukraine. It was supported unanimously by the UN Security Council. The United States and Ukraine decided it was not to be enforced. Germany and France, which were the guarantors of the Normandy process, let it go. And it was absolutely another direct American unipolar action with Europe, as usual, playing completely useless subsidiary role, even though it was a guarantor of the agreement. Trump won, raised the armaments. There were many thousands of deaths in the shelling by Ukraine in the Donbass. There was no Minsk II agreement. And then Biden came into office. And again, I know all these people. I used to be a member of the Democratic Party. I now am strictly sworn to be a member of no party because both are the same anyway.
That's right!
Because this is, the Democrats became complete warmongers over time, and there was not one voice about peace, just like most of your parliamentarians, the same way. So at the end of 1991, Putin put on the table a last effort in 2 security agreement drafts, one with Europe and one with the United States. The U.S. put on the table December 15th, 2021. I had an hour call with Jake Sullivan in the White House begging.
Can you all still hear?
Avoid the war. You can avoid the war.
Can y'all still hear? Because the audio dipped. It got really low, right?
All you have to do is say, NATO will not enlarge to Ukraine. And he said to me, oh, NATO's not going to enlarge to Ukraine. Don't worry about it. I said, Jake, say it publicly. No, we can't say it publicly. Say, Jake, you're going to have a war over something that isn't even going to happen? He said, don't worry, Jeff, there will be no war. These are not very bright people. I'm telling you, if I could give you my honest view, they're not very bright people. And I've dealt with them for more than 40 years. They talk to themselves. They don't talk to anybody else. They play game theory. In non-cooperative game theory, you don't talk to the other side. You just make your strategy. This is the essence of game theory. It's not negotiation theory. It's not peacemaking theory. It is unilateral, non-cooperative theory, if you know formal game theory. That's what they play. It started at the Rand Corporation. That's what they still play. In 2019, there's a paper by Rand, How Do We Extend Russia? Do you know they wrote a paper, which Biden followed? How do we annoy Russia? That's literally the strategy. How do we annoy Russia? We're trying to provoke it, trying to make it break apart, maybe have regime change, maybe have unrest, maybe have economic crisis. That's what you call your ally. Are you kidding? So I had a long and frustrating phone call with Sullivan. I was standing out in the freezing cold. I happened to be trying to have a ski day. And there I was, Jake, don't have the war. Oh, there'll be no war, Jeff. We know a lot of what happened the next month, which is that they refused to negotiate. The stupidest idea of NATO is the so-called open door policy. Are you kidding? NATO reserves the right to go where it wants without any neighbor having any say whatsoever? Well, I tell the Mexicans and the Canadians, don't try it. You know, Trump may want to take over Canada. So Canada could say to China, why don't you build a military base in Ontario? I wouldn't advise it. And the United States would not say, well, it's an open door. That's their business. I mean, they can do what they want. That's not our business. But grown-ups in Europe, repeat this. In Europe, in your commission, your high representative. This is nonsense stuff. This is not even baby geopolitics.
Let's look up who Jake Sullivan is. Jake Sullivan is an American attorney who served as the U.S. National Security Advisor from 2021 to 2025. And so then let's look up, what does the U.S. National Security Advisor do as a position? The National Security Advisor serves as the principal advisor to the President of the United States on all national security issues. Who is currently in charge of U.S. national security? That would be General Timothy D. Hoff, who is the director of the National Security Agency, aka the NSA. Who is the who is the current U.S. National Security Advisor? Michael Waltz, who is an actual idiot. Longest tenured U.S. National Advisor is Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger holds the distinction of serving as National Security Advisor and Secretary of State at the same time from September 22nd to 1973. Just a side note, a really good documentary to watch is Fog of War, which is about and narrated by Robert McNamara, who was the longest running U.S. Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth, who is an actual idiot, is the current Secretary of Defense. And then Robert McNamara went on to be like the head of Ford and put actual like seatbelts in the cars. But Robert McNamara it's worth listening to it's worth watching Fog of War to really see how a lot of these folks, like, they eventually in older age are like, what the heck was I doing? And then they start trying to spread all the info to stop it from happening again. And I had talked about this previously, but basically what happens is that these white people do not actually honor wisdom. So, like, even though there becomes wisdom after these people do terrible, terrible things and they realize, oh my gosh, like, I can't even this was terrible that I was a part of this, that it doesn't end up being transferred onto the next white folks to then have them be like, okay, how can we move differently? No, they end up completely ignoring this, and they stifle it, they suppress it, and it's not seen as wisdom. It's like seen as the ramblings of an old idiot or something. And so, they know they do get drunk on power and they're in the matrix and all the things, but a lot of times they end up getting out of there and they're like, yo, because their conscience gets awakened by a myriad of things. But there really is not, oh, that's what you've been saying by AU, the end of university. But there is such a thing as the reality that there's just no real, genuine value to wisdom within whiteness. Have you noticed this? Like, they don't talk about ancestral wisdom. They don't talk about, like, learning and education. Like, they really don't. They're basically like, nah, if you're not continuing to carry forward this white supremacist ideology and this colonial settler BS, then you're not wise. You're actually counter to what we're doing, and you need to go out. You need to head out. Yeah, you need to head out. Let's continue to listen to Jeffrey Sachs' Ukraine speech at the EU Parliament, where he is literally giving us all the tea on how we got where we are with Ukraine and Russia.
This is just not thinking at all. So the war started. What was Putin's intention in the war? I can tell you what his intention was. It was to force Zelensky to negotiate neutrality. And that happened within 7 days of the start of the invasion. You should understand this, not the propaganda that's written about this. Oh, that they failed and he was going to take over Ukraine. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, understand something basic. The idea was to keep NATO, and what is NATO? It's the United States, off of Russia's border. No more, no less. I should add one very important point. Why are they so interested? First, because if China or Russia decided to have a military base on the Rio Grande or in the Canadian border, not only would the United States freak out, we'd have war within about minutes. Okay. But because the United States unilaterally abandoned the anti-ballistic missile treaty in 2002 and ended the nuclear arms control framework by doing so. And this is extremely important to understand. The nuclear arms control framework is based on trying to block a first strike. The ABM treaty was a critical component of that. The U.S. unilaterally walked out of the ABM treaty in 2002. It blew a Russian gasket. So everything I've been describing is in the context of the destruction of the nuclear framework as well. And starting in 2010, the U.S. put in Aegis missile systems in Poland and then in Romania. And Russia doesn't like that. And one of the issues on the table in December and January, December 2021, January 2022, was, does the United States claim the right to put missile systems in Ukraine? And Blinken told Lavrov in January 2022, the United States reserves the right to put missile systems wherever it wants.
Wow.
That's your putative ally. And now let's put intermediate missile systems back in Germany. The United States walked out of the INF treaty unilaterally in 2019. There is no nuclear arms framework right now. None. When Zelensky said in 7 days, let's negotiate, I know the details of this exquisitely because I've talked to all the parties in detail. Within a couple of weeks, there was a document exchanged that President Putin had approved, that Lavrov had presented, that was being managed by the Turkish mediators. I flew to Ankara to listen in detail to what the mediators were doing. Ukraine walked away unilaterally from a near agreement. Why? Because the United States told them to. Because the UK added icing to the cake by having Bojo go in early April to Ukraine and explain. And he has recently, and if your security is in the hands of Boris Johnson, God help us all.
Dang.
Keith Starmer turns out to be even worse. It's unimaginable, but it is true.
He's naming he's naming British prime ministers. Okay? He's naming British prime ministers. I'm going to start watching Paradise today.
Boris Johnson has explained, and you can look it up on the website, that what's at stake here is Western hegemony. Not Ukraine, Western hegemony.
Do we know what hegemony means? Do we know what hegemony means, y'all? Let's talk about it. Do we know what hegemony means? Hegemony, hegemony. Do we know what hegemony means? Look it up. Hegemony, Hegemony. Look it up and then put it in your own words and drop it in the chat. How do you interpret what you've read? If you had to read the definition and then you had to tell somebody what that definition is in a way that you wanted them to understand, how would you do that? Put that in the chat for me. All right. Leadership or dominance. Dominance over another. Nation state bullying others. One group having complete power over another. Ethnocentric, political, etc. dominance. Yep. Elites. I got put off trying to read Noam Chomsky back in like 2002 because he used that word so much. It was accurate though. Hegemony is the dominance of one group. So when we talk about hegemony, we're literally talking about dominance, but within a national construct, typically. So the hegemony, when we talk about like U.S. hegemony, we're talking about the concept of U.S. dominance and the protection of that. So when I say, Kamala Harris was not going to shift any way that the U.S. hegemony operates, what I'm saying is that she was still going to be another actor carrying forth this global destruction that is been carried out in order to create U.S. hegemony. Whew. I'm hungry. Anyways, let's keep going.
Michael and I met at the Vatican with a group in the spring of 2022 where we wrote a document explaining nothing good can come out of this war for Ukraine. Negotiate now because anything that takes time will mean massive amounts of deaths, risk of nuclear escalation, and likely loss of the war. I wouldn't change one word from what we wrote then. Nothing was wrong in that document. And since that document, since the U.S. talked the negotiators away from the table, about 1 million Ukrainians have died or been severely wounded. And the American senators, who are as nasty and cynical and corrupt as imaginable, say this is wonderful expenditure of our money because no Americans are dying. It's the pure proxy war. One of our senators nearby me, Blumenthal, says this out loud. Mitt Romney says this out loud. It's best money America can spend. No Americans are dying. It's unreal. Now, just to bring us up to yesterday, this failed. This project failed. The idea of the project was that Russia would fold its hand. The idea all along was Russia can't resist, as Zbigniew Brzezinski explained in 1997. The Americans thought we have the upper hand. We're going to win because we're going to bluff them. They're not really going to fight. They're not really going to mobilize. The nuclear option of cutting them out of SWIFT, that's going to do them in. The economic sanctions, that's going to do them in. The HIMARS, that's going to do them in. The ATACMS, the F-16s.
Think about a child you love. Now take away their
This is really just American hubris.
And a roof over their head. Take away their safe route to school, most meals.
This is literally American hubris.
Honestly, I've listened to this for 70 years. I've listened to it as semi-understanding, I'd say, for about 56 years. They speak nonsense every day. My country, my government. This is so familiar to me, completely familiar. I begged the Ukrainians, and I had a track record with the Ukrainians. I advised the Ukrainians. I'm not anti-Ukrainian, I'm pro-Ukrainian completely. I said, save your lives, save your sovereignty, save your territory, be neutral. Don't listen to the Americans. I repeated to them the famous adage of Henry Kissinger, that to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. Okay, so let me repeat that for Europe. To be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. So let me now finalize a few words about Trump. Trump does not want the losing hand. This is why it is more likely than not this war will end. Because Trump and President Putin will agree to end the war. If Europe does all its great warmongering, it doesn't matter. The war is ending. So get it out of your system. Please tell your colleagues. It's over. And it's over because Trump doesn't want to carry a loser. That's it. It's not some great morality. He doesn't want to carry a loser. This is a loser. The one that will be saved by the negotiations taking place right now is Ukraine. Second is Europe. Your stock market's rising in recent days by the horrible news of negotiations. I know this has been met with the sheer horror in these chambers, but this is the best news that you could get. Now, I encouraged, they don't listen to me, but I tried to reach out to some of the European leaders. Most don't want to hear anything from me at all. But I said, don't go to Kiev. Go to Moscow. Discuss with your counterparts. Are you kidding? You're Europe. You're 450 million people. You're a $20 trillion economy. You should be the main economic trading partner of Russia. Its natural links. By the way, if anyone would like to discuss how the U.S. blew up Nord Stream, I'd be happy to talk about that. So, the Trump administration is imperialist at heart. It is great powers dominate the world. It is we will do what we want when we can. We will be better than a senescent Biden, and we'll cut our losses where we have to. There are several war zones in the world, the Middle East being another. We don't know what will happen with that. Again, if Europe had a proper policy, you could stop that war. I'll explain how. But war with China is also a possibility. So I'm not saying that we're at the new age of peace, but we are in a very different kind of politics right now. And Europe should have a foreign policy. And not just a foreign policy of Russophobia, a foreign policy that is a realistic foreign policy.
Russophobia is fear of Russia. Russia, phobia, fear. Fear of Russia. Which oftentimes is kind of like, the phobia is not really meaning fear as much as an aversion to, like a deep, deep, deep dislike of.
That understands Russia's situation, that understands Europe's situation, that understands what America is and what it stands for, that tries to avoid Europe being invaded by the United States, because it's not impossible that America will just land troops in Danish territory. I'm not joking, and I don't think they're joking. And Europe needs a foreign policy, a real one. Not a, yes, we'll bargain with Mr. Trump and meet him halfway. You know what that will be like? Give me a call afterwards. Please don't have American officials as head of Europe. Have European officials. Please, have a European foreign policy. You're going to be living with Russia for a long time, so please negotiate with Russia. There are real security issues on the table, but the bombast and the Russophobia is not serving your security at all. It's not serving Ukraine's security at all. It contributed to 1 million casualties in Ukraine from this idiotic American adventure that you signed on to and then became the lead cheerleaders of. Solves nothing. On the Middle East, by the way, the U.S. completely handed over foreign policy to Netanyahu 30 years ago. The Israel lobby dominates American politics. Just have no doubt about it. I could explain for hours how it works. It's very dangerous. I'm hoping that Trump will not destroy his administration and worse, the Palestinian people, because of Netanyahu, who I regard as a war criminal, properly indicted by the ICC, and that needs to be told no more, that there will be a state of Palestine on the borders of the 4th of June, 1967, according to international.
Slay girl, Slay girl, tell me what part you're not understanding so we can try and bring some clarity as a class. I'm going to run it back a little bit. Craig, he's not grim. This is one of the problems with the United States, is that there's this idea that the truth is, it's almost like, you know, speaking reality is, it's like, oh, this is ruining my day. It's like, this is not grim. This is not melancholy. Like, this is what it is.
It's not serving your security at all. It's not serving Ukraine's security at all. It contributed to 1 million casualties in Ukraine from this idiotic American adventure that you signed on to and then became the lead cheerleaders of. Solves nothing.
So just so we're clear, chat, Craig Bruce, who is some random first name here in the YouTube chat, is saying that Jeffrey Sachs, who has been a geopolitical advisor for 70 years and has in many cases already in this speech shown us examples of him saying, we know this is going to happen, we really should not do this, and then they go ahead and do it, and then what happens happens. Craig Bruce here in this chat, in his picture with his seatbelt on, said that this guy ain't making no sense. This is what I mean by intellectual laziness and by American intellectual hubris. This is what I mean. This is what I mean when I talk about that. The American exceptionalism about things that are not even within your purview, but you feel like you know more about, is unreal. He is a professor at Columbia, yes.
On the Middle East, by the way, the U.S. completely handed over foreign policy to Netanyahu 30 years ago. The Israel lobby dominates American politics. Just have no doubt about it. I could explain for hours how it works. It's very dangerous. I'm hoping that Trump will not destroy his administration and worse, the Palestinian people, because of Netanyahu, who I regard as a war criminal, properly indicted by the ICC, and that needs to be told no more, that there will be a state of Palestine on the borders of the 4th of June, 1967, according to international law, as the only way for peace. It's the only way for Europe to have peace on your borders.
I'm going to do that, Miss Latia.
Is the two-state solution. There is only one obstacle to it, by the way, and that is the veto of the United States in the UN Security Council. So if you want to have some influence, tell the United States, drop the veto. You are together with 180 countries in the world. The only ones that oppose a Palestinian state are the United States, Israel, Micronesia, Nauru, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Mr. Malay, and Paraguay. So this is a place where Europe could have a big influence. Europe has gone silent about the JCPOA and Iran. Netanyahu's greatest dream in life is a war between the United States and Iran. He's not given up, and it's not impossible that that would come also. And that's because the U.S. in this regard does not have an independent foreign policy. It is run by Israel. It's tragic. It's
I want you
amazing,
to
by the
listen
way.
to this again. And I
It's very
also,
dangerous.
because of Miss Latia's fabulous idea, remember, I'm just new to YouTube, so I'm not even sure about controls. She just asked, she made a suggestion to turn on the subscribers only feature. So now I have done that, and I think this is going to make this experience so much better for us.
I'm hoping that Trump will not destroy his administration and worse, the Palestinian people, because of Netanyahu, who I regard as a war criminal, properly indicted by the ICC, and that needs to be told no more, that there will be a state of Palestine on the borders of the 4th of June, 1967, according to international law, as the only way for peace. It's the only way for Europe to have peace on your borders with the Middle East, is the two-state solution. There is only one obstacle to it, by the way, and that is the veto of the United States in the UN Security Council.
That is correct.
So if you want to have some influence, tell the United States, drop the veto. You are together with 180 countries in the world. The only ones that oppose a Palestinian state are the United States, Israel, Micronesia, Nauru, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Mr. Malay, and Paraguay. So this is a place where Europe could have a big influence.
Yes.
Europe has gone silent about the JCPOA and Iran. Netanyahu's greatest dream in life is a war between the United States and Iran. He's not given up, and it's not impossible that that would come also. And that's because the U.S. in this regard does not have an independent foreign policy. It is run by Israel. It's tragic. It's amazing, by the way. And it could end. Trump may say that he wants foreign policy back. Maybe. I'm hoping that it's the case. Finally, let me just say with respect to China, China is not an enemy. China China is just a success story. That's why it is viewed by the United States as an enemy, because China is a bigger economy than the United States. That's all.
Gotta be massive, because I.
Thank you for putting us onto that, Miss Latia. That was so fabulous. Thank you so much for putting us on. I'm glad we got to watch that together. Did y'all enjoy watching that together? Like, is this a thing you would want to do moving forward? Watching stuff together and, you know, breaking it down and talking about it, like, over the course of it. I thought that was really informative for me, at least. I think they asked questions at the end. Let's see. Hold on.
Questions. Please don't make any statements. Just make questions, because we are too many and we don't have all that much time. So where do I start? I start with on the left side. I have a preference to the left. Yes, you know. You come on. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Jeffrey Sachs. From the Czech Republic, we are glad we have here. We have a problem. We were cursed by a witch who...
Wait. The accents. Let's take this back down to the regular playback speed for the accents. We are American for the most part here in the chat, and we need to just... Okay, so let's do that.
The EU, and the EU is marked. So it won't be improved until 2029. But what we, the Central Europeans, should do in the meantime, especially if the Germans don't happen to vote for Sarah Wagenknecht enough, are we supposed to create some kind of neutrality for the Central Europe, or what would you suggest us to do?
So, first of all my grandchildren are Czech, I want you to know. And Sonia is Czech-born and Czech citizen, so we're very proud. I'm the trailing spouse in this, but I'm a Czech wannabe. Europe needs to have a...
I want you all to notice how he paused before he answered. I feel like so often people do not want to allow people to do that. They don't want you to pause and think before you answer. They think it's like you being duplicitous or something. And it's so necessary. You guys, if you are being asked questions, pause, repeat the question back in your head, take a deep breath, then start your answers. Do not feel compelled to rush. Okay?
A foreign policy that is a European foreign policy. And it needs to be a realist foreign policy. Realist is not hate. Realist is actually trying to understand both sides and to negotiate. There are two kinds of realists, defensive realists and offensive realists. My dear friend John Mearsheimer, who is the offensive realist, we're very close friends and I love him, but I believe more than he does, you talk to the other side and you find a way to make an understanding. And so basically, Russia is not going to invade Europe. This is the fundamental point. It may get up to the Dnieper River. It's not going to invade Europe. But there are real issues. The main issue for Russia was the United States, because Russia, as a major power and the largest nuclear power in the world, was profoundly concerned about U.S. unipolarity from the beginning. Now that this is seemingly, possibly ending, Europe has to open negotiations directly with Russia as well, because the United States will quickly lose interest and you're going to be living with Russia for the next thousands of years. Okay? So what do you want? You want to make sure that the Baltic states are secure. The best thing for the Baltic states is to stop their Russophobia. This is the most important thing. Estonia has about 25% Russian citizens, or Russian-speaking citizens, ethnic Russians. Latvia, the same. Don't provoke the neighbor. That's all. This is not hard. It really isn't hard. And again, I want to explain my point of view. I have helped these countries, the ones I'm talking about, trying to advise. I'm not their enemy. I'm not Putin's puppet. I'm not Putin's apologist. I worked in Estonia. They gave me, I think it's the second highest civilian honor that a president of Estonia can bestow on a non-national, because I designed their currency system for them in 1992.
Light work.
So I'm giving them advice. Do not stand there, Estonia, and say, we want to break up Russia. Are you kidding? Don't. This is not how to survive in this world. You survive with mutual respect, actually. You survive in negotiation.
You know, what he's saying is not just on a geopolitical level, but in general. He designed the money system for Estonia. You know, I think that we've really lost sight of this. We've lost sight of what it means to have any level of diplomacy, and folks really lead with incredible vitriol. They lead with indictment. I know that's why I be responding the way I do, because they coming at me with guns blazing. And when we are seeing within the United States this whole idea of closing borders amongst our peoples, amongst our groups, etc., and that idea being the way to survive, this is going to be what makes this country fall even more. And for the record, the country need to fall. It just feels like there's going to be more casualties that way. You know, folks are trying to have a unipolarity mindset for their own little group within a space that already has power over them. And I think that is completely, I think that's a false strategy. So when I hear him talk about this, about the concept of, you know, let's hear what he says again.
Putin's puppet. I'm not Putin's apologist. I worked in Estonia. They gave me, I think it's the second highest civilian honor that a president of Estonia can bestow on a non-national, because I designed their currency system for them in 1992. So I'm giving them advice. Do not stand there, Estonia, and say, we want to break up Russia. Are you kidding? Don't. This is not how to survive in this world. You survive with mutual respect.
You survive with mutual respect.
Actually. You survive in negotiation.
Thank you, Nikki G. You survive in negotiation.
You survive in discussion.
You survive in discussion. This is also, by the way, how relationships that are romantic survive. This idea of someone has to be the dominant and someone has to be the head of the, et cetera, to me, it's just, we survive in basic respect for each other, in communication, and in listening.
You don't outlaw the Russian language. Not a good idea when 25% of your population has a first language.
What he's describing, though, is this habit that these, that places have for carrying forth the bottom line behaviors of settler colonialism. This is what all settler colonialists do. This is what they all do. They outlaw language. They want to take you away from your identity, et cetera, so they can control you. And what they end up doing by doing that is actually radicalizing you. That's what they end up actually doing. And then when they radicalize you and you fight for your freedom, they say you're a savage, we have to kill you. They say they're dogs, we have to kill you. They say they're not even human, we have to kill you. They say, oh my gosh, how are we're so unsafe. I mean, it's basic Karen dynamics. It's basic Karen dynamics. And it's so wildly rampant and common.
Russian. It's not right, even if there weren't a giant on the border. It wouldn't be the right thing to do. You'd have it as an official language. You'd have a language of in lower school. You wouldn't antagonize the Russian Orthodox Church. So basically, we need to behave like grown-ups. And when I constantly say that they're acting like children, Sonia always says to me, that's unfair to children. Because this is worse than children. We have a 6-year-old granddaughter and a 3-year-old grandson, and they actually make up with their friends. And we don't tell them, go, just ridicule them tomorrow and every day. We say, go, give them a hug, and go play. And they do. This is not hard. By the way, well, anyway, I won't belabor the point. Thank you. So, elect a new government. No, I shouldn't say that. All I should say is change policy.
I don't want to have a politically.
Does that work? Yeah. Hi, my name's Kira. I'm a reporter with the Brussels Times. Thank you for the fascinating talk, Jeffrey. I just wanted to ask you about Trump's statements about wanting NATO members to increase their spending by 5%. And we're now seeing lots of countries scrambling to prove that they're going to do that, including Belgium. And given that Belgium is also the NATO headquarters, I wanted to ask you what would be the appropriate response to those statements by NATO members? Thanks.
We don't see exactly eye to eye on this question, so let me give you my own view. My first recommendation, with all respect to Brussels, is move the NATO headquarters somewhere else. I mean it seriously, because one of the worst parts of European policy right now is a complete confusion of Europe and NATO.
Bye, Miss Latia.
These are completely different, but they became exactly the same. Europe is much better than NATO. In my opinion, NATO isn't even needed anymore.
Facts.
I would have ended it in 1991. But because the U.S. viewed it as an instrument of hegemony,
there's that word again,
against Russia, it continued afterwards. But the confusion of NATO in Europe is deadly, because expanding Europe meant expanding NATO, period. And these should have been completely different things.
Interesting.
So this is the first point.
Okay.
My own view, again, with all respect to Michael, we only had a brief conversation about it, is that Europe basically should have its own foreign policy and its own military security, its own strategic autonomy, so-called. And it should. I'm in favor of that. I would disband NATO, and maybe Trump is going to do it anyway. Maybe Trump's going to invade Greenland. Who knows? Then you're really going to find out what NATO means.
Right.
So I do think that Europe should invest in its security. 5% is outlandish, ridiculous, absurd, completely absurd. No one needs to spend anything like that amount. 2 to 3% of GDP, probably under the current circumstances. What I would do, by the way, is buy European production. Because actually, strangely, weirdly, unfortunately in this world, and it's a truism, but it's unfortunate, so I'm not championing it, a lot of technological innovation spins off from the military sector because governments invest in the military sector.
Right.
So Trump is a arms salesman.
Yep.
You understand that.
Yep.
He's selling American arms.
Listening?
He is selling American technology.
Oh, Dr.
Vance
Ball?
told you a few days ago, don't even think about having your own AI technology.
I'll hit up Jared.
So please understand that this increase of spending is for the United States, not for you. And in this sense, I'm completely against that approach. But I would not be against an approach of Europe spending 2 to 3% of GDP for a unified European security structure and invested in Europe and European technology. And not having the United States dictate the use of European technology. It's so interesting. It's the Netherlands that produces the only machines of advanced semiconductors, extreme ultraviolet lithography. It's ASML. But America determines every policy of ASML. The Netherlands doesn't even have a footnote. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Hand over all security to the United States.
Right.
I wouldn't do it. I would have your own security framework.
Exactly,
So
Rolando.
you can have your own foreign policy framework as well. Europe stands for lots of things that the United States does not stand for. Europe stands for climate action.
Yep.
By the way, rightly so, because our president is completely bonkers on this.
Yes.
And Europe stands for decency, for social democracy.
I don't know about
as an
that.
ethos. I'm not talking about a party.
I don't know about
I'm
that.
talking about an ethos of how equality of life occurs. Europe stands for multilateralism. Europe stands for the UN Charter. The U.S. stands for none of those things.
Wait, let's see what multilateralism is. Let's see what multilateralism is. If you know, drop it in here because I don't know what it is. Multilateralism. Multilateralism refers to an alliance of multiple countries pursuing a common goal. Okay.
You know that.
Well, he's speaking about Europe from literally the point of, he's speaking about Europe as it relates to white Europeans. You know, white people, no matter how brilliant they are, always have a blind spot because they've always grown up within whiteness. I mean, that's just the reality of what it is.
Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, canceled his trip to South Africa because on the agenda was equality and sustainability. And he said, I'm not getting into that. That is an honest reflection of deep Anglo-Saxon libertarianism. Egalitarianism is not a word of the American lexicon.
Do we know what egalitarianism is, y'all? Does anyone know what egalitarianism is? Egalitarianism? Anybody? Egalitarianism? Look it up and then come back and drop what you think it means. Look it up and come back and drop your interpretation of it. I always like seeing different versions of the same thing. You know what I mean? We're listening to Jeffrey Sachs at the EU Parliament. Sweatshirt Sardi say, relating to or believing in the principle that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. Esperanza says equal agency. No, please Google it. You know, that's fine. Yeah, you Google it and then you interpret it and then you drop it here. Social structure where equality is valued. Love it. Promoting equality among humans, equality for all. So what this does is this gives you all of these different ways to say the same thing. And so now it helps you, one, remember that. And two, it helps you to be able to say it in words that make sense to you. Because like the actual phrasing of egalitarianism or equalitarianism is a school of thought that within political philosophy, you know, like that's hard. Like, you know, so when we simplify it or we bite size it and we drop it in here in the chat, it really, to me, is a way for us to bring it into our vernacular in an organic way that we can actually use. Okay? So he was saying that South Africa has a commitment to egalitarianism, which is not entirely true, but I think that there are large swaths of South Africa that are looking for that. And then there are, of course, the white people in South Africa who are like, no, we still want to be who we are, which is we still want to have more than Black people. That being said, it was in the context of him bringing up egalitarianism is that they had a planned visit for Marco Rubio to come to South Africa. And then on the agenda, it said that they were going to talk about equality and something else. And he was like, oh, no, I'm good. I'm not going to come. So he didn't come. And he was saying, you see, like the United States does not have a policy of egalitarianism. And we know that to be true.
Sustainable development, not at all. You probably know, by the way, that of the 193 UN member states,
yes,
191 have had SDG plans presented as voluntary national reviews. 191. 2 have not. Haiti and the United States of America. The Biden administration wasn't even allowed to say sustainable development goals. The Treasury had a...
So you know we just learned? SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Development Goals. He just said something that's really important to hear. So we're going to say it again, particularly because we have a current administration that doesn't give a goddamn about green gases and climate change, etc. So listen again.
Sustainability. And he said, I'm not getting into that. That is an honest reflection of deep Anglo-Saxon libertarianism. Egalitarianism is not a word of the American lexicon. Sustainable development, not at all. You probably know, by the way, that of the 193 UN member states, 191 have had SDG plans presented as voluntary national reviews. 191. 2 have not. Haiti and the United States of America. The Biden administration wasn't even allowed to say sustainable development goals. The Treasury had a policy not to say sustainable development goals.
Wow.
Okay, I mention all of this because you need your own foreign policy. I issue a report, 2 reports each.
Wait, I just want to say something really quick. So when we talk about Democrats and their many ways of being problematic and committed to the continuance of the issues that we like to complain about with Republicans, notice what he just said. The Treasury had it on the books that Biden could not talk about sustainable development goals here in the United States. They couldn't talk about sustainability development goals. But yet they constantly use, well, we acknowledge climate change as enough of a difference between them and Republicans to make you vote for them, but they don't ever really commit to ways in which that can be sustainable beyond their being voted in. It's the same reason why I believe they never ratified Roe v. Wade, because it could always be used as a chip. If they ratify it, it's no longer a chip to be used politically. So we're going to continue to not ratify it so that we can continue to use women's bodies as a playing piece in this little game we playing with y'all lives.
Each year won the World Happiness Report. And 18 of the top 20 countries, if I remember correctly, are European. This is the highest quality of life in the whole world.
When I started
Thank you, Rolando.
they told me.
I got to have real good company today. My really good friend, Autumn, we went to purchase together. She was over here, and I talked to my homeboy, Brandon Victor Dixon, for an hour today. So they just made my brain be like, so I'm like, I'm here with y'all tonight.
You need your own policy to protect that quality of life. The United States ranks way down. And the other report, where's my colleague Guillaume? He's somewhere in the room. Here, there he is. Guillaume Lafortune is the lead author of our annual Sustainable Development Report. And almost all of the top 20 countries are European countries because you believe in this stuff. And that's why you're the happiest, except in geopolitics. But quality of life. So you need your own foreign policy, but you won't have it unless you have your own security. You just won't. And by the way, 27 countries cannot each have their own foreign policy.
What he's suggesting here is that the European Union literally create an army for the European Union. When he's saying you need to have your own security, he's saying that the European Union needs to have its own military, not the individual countries with their militaries, but an actual military that is for the European Union. He is saying that the union that is already formed should not just be one that is formed through economics, but one that is formed with other policies that reflect their cohesion. Right? So, the euro is an economic reference, the euro is an economic representation of their cohesion. But beyond that, he's saying you need foreign policy, and meaning that there needs to be a shared, signed upon agreement by all countries within the European Union on how they're going to respond to things that are happening from outside of the union that affect the union. Now we see, like someone said, said, so does Africa. Well, the thing about Africa is that Africa is such a giant, vast continent that different parts of Africa experience different things. So you have the Sahel region of Africa, which are a number of the states that are in the Sahara Desert. And we're seeing a huge shift in that region of countries that are saying no to colonialist presence, right? So we have countries like the Gambia, we have countries like Burkina Faso, countries like Senegal, countries like Mali, I think not Namibia, Niger, and they're saying we don't want to throw this out. And I don't think it would be necessary well, let me finish this thought. So what they're doing with the Sahel region is they're now forming a union saying we need to get together and create sovereignty. This is what Patrice Lumumba of Burkina Faso was talking about. This is what This is what Patrice Lumumba of the Congo was talking about. Okay, this is what Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso was talking about, and they took these brothers out because these brothers was talking about in the 60s. So the same way that in the 60s you had black people in America saying we need to have our own sovereignty and we need to be free, they were saying this in Africa. They were saying we need to have sovereignty. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Africa was made to also need to depend on these other countries, their colonizers, because the colonizers forced them to plant crops that used up the nutrients in their soil. It made their soil infertile. So they made them plant crops that they then had to ship out to these European colonizers for, no money in the beginning, but they made them do this. For instance, the white bean. The white bean was planted in these colonized countries in soil that it did not allow to get enriched again. So it used up the nutrients in the soil. And the more you chop down the soil, now you don't got no more soil. And so now they then can't produce their own food. They couldn't produce their own food. And so now they then had to rely on food coming in from these other places, which makes them vulnerable. US aid used to use stuff like this to their advantage. We're going to give you shit that you need so that you give us stuff that we want. That was the actual way that they operated. We're going to give you what you need so that you can give us what we want. Haiti. The United States would not let Haiti eat their own rice. They wouldn't let Haiti sell their own rice and made them buy rice from the United States. And the rice in the United States had far less nutrients and in some cases was actually poisoning Haitians. And sometimes it's resources. Sometimes it's space for a military base, it's positioning. But there we go. Natasha said they poisoned the rice in Haiti last year. So sometimes I feel like, okay, so what? We know this now. So what? I think we need to know this because knowing begets action in many ways, right? Knowing begets frustration, begets anger that can be refined into response. And we look at time in such a limited way because our lives are, for what it's worth, between like 80 years. And so we think that if it didn't happen within that time, it's not really like that important or it can't happen. But 2 lifetimes is 160 years. 2 lifetimes, 160 years. Why would you even say that, Maeve? So it's really just the thought process around time that keeps so many of us holding back our belief in the capability to change things or to move things or to shift things. Forgetting that time is a long and non-linear existence. Wouldn't an EU military force likely require a forced draft for each country to fairly contribute? I only see this possible if they do mandatory enrollment like Israel does for all Israelis. I don't agree. I mean, I think there's something to be said for just a dedication to anyone who conscripts into the military forces of these various countries to have to serve in the EU. So I don't think it has to be a draft. I think it's just a conscription that's attached to those who are already serving in these various countries. You can be a little autistic, but that doesn't mean that you need to, like, I don't want us using our autism as an excuse to say shit that's problematic. Like, sometimes you got to say to yourself, like, is this something I should say out loud? No. No. I'm not confused about why that thought came to your mind. But what I'm trying to tell you is that when you voice things like that out loud in digital spaces, you are helping to incur the reality. And so I'm asking you to challenge yourself to be a little bit more conscious of how you protect these spaces and how you move within them. Monica, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but you on thin ice. So maybe you want to clarify your point. Not Latia coming back. Thank you. All right. We've been on here for a long time. We've been on here for a long time, y'all. We've been on here for a long time. 3 hours. Someone asked if I'm really... Oh, okay. See, that's why I asked. That's why I said, let me make sure, because I don't know who she's talking to. But if she's talking to me, it sounds crazy. Thank you for clarifying. This chat became so different once we said that. Thank you, Monica. Once we only let subscribers in. Am I right? Like Rolando could just relax. So Miss Latia, you won the chat today. You win. You won the chat. Miss Latia told us about watching Jeffrey Sachs, and Miss Latia told us about the subscriber thing. Oh, we getting there, y'all. We getting there. I'm about to figure that out on my page, like how I can make it so that you can only leave comments if you're a subscriber. That's the next thing I'm about to do. That's the next thing I'm about to do. Because I'm tired of these mean people who was like, oh, she over there now? I'm going to just go be mean to her over there. I'm tired of these black folks that are not my people coming from my neck. I'm tired of these non-black folks that are not my people coming from my neck. I'm just tired. Tired. Thank you, Lena. So, hating may pay, but I honestly don't want that kind of money. Okay? I don't want that kind of money. I don't need money that come from that. I don't need it. You all have a fabulous evening, and I wish... Yeah, Monica, I know. That's why I said thank you. I wish you all a happy, peaceful weekend. Try to, I don't know, try to just breathe. I'm about to go eat some cheese. Good night.